Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and the ranking member for holding a hearing on what I think is an incredibly important topic. It may not seem to get the same sex appeal as others, but I think the best energy at the end of the day is that which we don't use and/or use effectively. So I think this is incredibly important. It's a vital, cost-effective way for us to meet our energy challenges, and we need to pursue energy efficiency as aggressively as possible. I want to say that I appreciate that the DOE and the EPA have announced that yesterday that they're going to work out an agreement by the end of April on the Energy Star program for solid-state lighting. This is a great development, and I look forward to a positive result, but I want to caution both departments that if they don't reach agreement as they've pledged to, that some of us, certainly I, may very well decide the conflict for them. I'd rather you decide the conflict, but if not, I think it's important to finalize it, and I'll be keeping a close eye on that. So let me ask some questions. Mr. Rogers, does the department believe that it has the authority to regulate BR-type reflector lamps that are now exempted from federal standards? And if so, do you have, are you considering any regulations for these lamps?
Thank you, Senator. In fact, that topic has been of discussion with the acting general counsel and the Secretary's office, and we expect to make an announcement on that very soon. We recognize, as Mr. Nadel has pointed out, that this category of products could potentially provide significant energy savings. So I think I'd be happy to report as soon as possible on the determination made by the Secretary in that area.
And is that determination going to be that whether or not you have the authority to regulate now, or do you believe you have that and then your answer is about whether or not you're going to consider any regulations?
The answer that you will be receiving, sir, will be when the department plans to begin rulemaking on this topic.
Okay, which means you believe you have the authority to regulate.
That's a fair conclusion.
Can't regulate if you don't have the authority, so I assume that you're taking the position you have the authority. All right. We'll look forward to that, because one of the things I was considering as we mark up is to clarify the department's authority and establish a schedule for regulating these lamps. I've circulated an amendment to you and to others, the witnesses here, so I look forward to hearing back from you. Secondly, during the Clinton administration, the Department of Energy determined that it had the authority to set both energy and peak demands for standard air conditioners. Then during the Bush administration, the Department of Energy rejected several consensus standard proposals because they included more than one metric. Now that there is a new administration, is that interpretation being reviewed again? And would it be useful for Congress to clarify the department's authority along the lines of the amendment that I circulated to you and others?
Thank you, Senator. Well, let me just say it's always useful when Congress provides clarification. In this case, I have not discussed this issue with our Office of General Counsel, but it has been of concern in the past that it was viewed that we did not have the authority to establish more than one metric. Clearly, there are energy savings to be had if this authority was available to us. So we look forward to working with the committee on this issue.
Okay. Mr. Pitzor, let me ask you this. In the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, we authorized states to help enforce standards on incandescent light lamps by seeking injunctive relief in federal courts. The intent was to permit additional enforcement while following federal procedures. Is that something that you support, extending this injunctive enforcement authority to other standards?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the enforcement of general service light bulbs, why we supported state injunctive relief is that we're talking about a high-volume product. Over 1 billion light bulbs are sold annually in the United States. And as we move the migration to the new efficiency standards and starting in 2012, we could see a lot of light bulb sales that the federal government weren't going to be able to monitor, but that the states would be able to monitor at retail. So we supported that state State Attorney General's ability to seek injunctive relief with respect to that high-volume product. I'm not sure we have the same type of situation with low-volume type products. Electric motors, transformers, these are not high-volume products that we see a problem with respect to enforcement at the present time. So it's somewhat product-specific as to whether that would make an appropriate vehicle for enforcement. And then secondly, the legislation has in the base bill a study that has been called for to look at compliance and enforcement options. And we think that that study should be conducted and come back with Congress on recommendations on what needs to be done.
Well, I just look at the fact that the DOE has, as far as I can see, has never issued a single fine for failure to comply with efficiency standards. And it just seems to me they need help enforcing these laws. So that's why I asked the question. We'll be looking forward to how that moves forward. Let me ask two final questions. The sales, this is to you, Mr. Pitzer, as well. The sales of BR-type lamps that are exempted from federal standards appears to represent about 30% of total reflector lamp sales. Do you support giving the Department of Energy authority to regulate BR lamps so that more efficient products can become standard practice?
Well, the industries were presently involved in an incandescent reflector rulemaking that, as we understand, will be made final in June or August of this year. The industry has supported migrating these remaining exempted products for DOE rulemaking going forward. So we are supportive of having those remaining BR lamps added to DOE rulemaking authority.
Okay. Let me turn to Senator Lincoln. Thank you. I have one last question and one follow-up, and then we'll, unless a member appears, we'll close the hearing. Mr. McLean, I've heard that Energy Star covers a fairly large portion of products on the market, usually at least 25, sometimes 50%. And that some, including Secretary Chu, is thinking that it might be useful to complement the current Energy Star program with a higher Energy Superstar tier that might represent the top 5% of products, but still be required to be cost-effective to consumers. What do you think of this concept?
Well, this clearly is something we do want to talk to the Department of Energy about. We do agree that there's a range of products out there with a range of efficiencies. And if we go back to the reason that we created Energy Star, what we were trying to do is overcome information barriers to consumers and other barriers in the marketplace. We were not trying to invent new technologies or advance new technologies. We wanted to get the technologies that had been invented and were out there, get them consumed. And so the whole brand was created around that concept. Another concept is to identify a market segment of individuals who want to be first movers, who are willing to pay more for higher technology efficiency. And we may need a new strategy to deal with that group. So we want to talk about how best to do that. We agree that there are people who want higher efficiencies and are willing to pay for it. If the technology is there at no additional cost, then we can change the Energy Star level. The issue was not, can you adjust it, but is there a difference in cost, and are you talking about a different segment? So in the product categories, we want to look at that, and if we can move toward some way of recognizing the highest efficiency products, that might be a very good thing to do. But I think we want to look at each of the categories and say, is this a generic thing, or is this specific? Are we talking about a few specific areas where we could do that effectively and figure out how to do that?
Okay. And Mr. Pitzer, let me just go back to an answer you gave me a few minutes ago with reference to the BR-type lamps. And I heard you say, well, we're engaged in the regulatory process. The question is, this has been exempted for 17 years. So when is it that you support, if you support going ahead and including giving DOE the authority to regulate what is about 30% of total reflector lamp sales, what time frame do you support it in?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In the Energy Security and Independence of Act 2007, we significantly narrowed the exemption of what was available. So in '92, when the Congress passed the initial exemption, that has been narrowed over the years. DOE set actually a wattage cap on BR lamps of 65 watts during that process. In '07, now we've narrowed that group to even a smaller category, such that 95% of your medium screw base sockets in your home are now or will be under federal regulation. So we're talking about a very small set remaining that we support being added to the federal program at the conclusion of this rulemaking.
So are you saying that it's not 30% of total reflector lamp sales in the marketplace?
Well, of the total, I'm talking about the options the consumers have in their home in terms of what types of bulbs they want to use for different settings. Because obviously, how you light your dining room will be different how you light your living room in terms of what types of bulbs and types of fixtures you're using. And so you have reflector, you have incandescent, you have halogen, you have compact fluorescent. So there's a mix of products that are available to consumers.
Mr. Nadell, do you have any views on this?
Yes, I mean, I do believe it's at least 30% of reflector lamps that are exempted, even with the tightening up. It used to be 40 to 50%. What Mr. Pitzer is saying is he's adding in all the general service pear-shaped bulbs, and yes, if you add those all in, it dilutes it. But the fact is that it's about 30% or more of the reflector lamps. We estimate that closing this loophole would save enough electricity to power 300,000 American homes. So we think it's pretty significant and not small.
All right. Thank you all for your testimony. We appreciate that. Seeing no other members here, the hearing is adjourned.